Hey everybody, this is Ryan McClanahan with historythroughcards.com. Hope you're all doing very well today. Today I have Bobby Burrell on, and I wanted to get his take on a lot of things, and I think we're just going to discuss certain topics. Bobby, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great, Ryan. Thanks so much for having me on. Yeah, I always look forward to our chats. We never know where we're really going to end up, or even go, for that matter. But we do have a little bit of focus today, so that's good.
Yeah. So you have you been doing anything recently with the hobby, your research?
Yeah, I'm going down little rabbit holes here and there. As I'm doing more write-ups, I run into different things, and then I kind of go off, or I see something in the news, that happens. Like I know there was a 1950 full box found of baseball, and I think Nat Turner, who he's part of PSA and what have you, he ended up purchasing it for an exorbitant amount of money, and I kind of went down a little bit of a rabbit hole there just because it's O-Pee-Chee and what have you. It was an O-Pee-Chee box, by the way.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so there's a difference. Like the Topps packs, they came in a I think it's red and blue box. It was 5 cents. I think you got 6 cards, if I'm not mistaken. It was
Yeah.
five or six. So in the Canadian version, we had 4 cards and gum, but there was more of a count in the box, and that's
Okay.
traditional for Topps and O-Pee-Chee, is because O-Pee-Chee always had a 36 count up to 1974. Then we went to 48. Topps always had 24 up until 1974. Then they went to 36, and that's baseball, football, and mostly the other sports traditionally.
Wow.
So we always had less cards, if it was the same, done by the same, um, and we had more packs. And I really believe that because Canada is so linear, the shipping, yeah, it's so long to ship to one direction, opposed to, in the States you had different hubs. We only had one or two wholesalers, so going across from Newfoundland to Vancouver is a long way. So I think more packs per box served them better. I don't understand why, but it is the way it is. So, but funny enough, in 1954 for hockey, there were 6 cards. So, and we didn't have gray backs. So you can understand where I got all this hockey information. I'm trying to push it into baseball, and it's just hitting
Yeah.
me going, all right, something's not working out here. What's with this gray? Okay, we got the gray stock backs that are supposed to be Canadian, and then you have the regular stock, which is American. The funny part is the stock that the hockey cards were printed on are actually light colored, cream colored stock on the back. It's not gray. So there's a big question there.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you think do you think that some of it has to do with like a second printing or maybe like a third or maybe a first printing?
that does happen. We have that in a few other hockey sets. I know the 73s are like that. We have light and dark stock. Now, if you're a printer, stock variants, you get a new shipment in, and you start running it, and it's the wrong tinge. You really can't tell unless you have something right next to it to compare it to. So they're just running it through, and that can happen. And I think that's what happens most of the time. I don't think they're ordering specific. I want a beige number 4, and we got beige number 6 or something. I don't think they ordered like that. I think it's just we want a cardboard stock of this millimeter thick and whatever.
Right, right.
So I don't think it happened like that. But
Okay.
I have many questions about Tops, and actually, the funny part is for hockey they also did the 1 cent packs, first time ever, first and last, which is very traditional for baseball. Hockey never did 1 cent packs unless you go back to the 30s, but otherwise from that time, from 54 up, there was no 1 cent packs. But I actually found a box top that has the 1 cent moniker. Just the lid. We've never found the box because there's actually only been a few box finds of the 54 5 cent hockey. You have to understand, finding stuff like that back then in Canada, low population, you're gonna.
Yeah. So is this the first one that they've ever found?
Yeah, I actually found a picture of just the lid, and it's a partial lid, but it did have the price 1 cent on it. But we know there was 1 cent packs because the packs were there, but never a box, and so the lid kind of confirms everything which is kind of interesting for that year. It's a very interesting year because I think I told you at one time that I spoke to the gentleman at O-Pee-Chee about 15, 20 years ago, the guy who drove down to the train station to pick up all the wrappers and not the packs, obviously they made the packs, the wrappers and the cards. So I think the cards were printed in the United States at that time for the hockey. Now, people are saying that they printed the cards in 54 for the baseball, so that's sort of contradictory. Why would you not print the hockey but print the baseball?
Yeah, right.
So you see where I'm going down
Yeah.
6 rabbit holes here, and I haven't figured out exactly. And the other part is that the biggest part is there's 2 different wrappers for O-Pee-Chee and for Topps. Now, the O-Pee-Chee, they have the dated version and the undated version. There's a date on one. There's one, same wrapper, just one's dated and the other one's not. So, as interesting as that is, everybody says there's 6 series. So, I actually did see in Higgins and Scott past auction, they had an uncut sheet. It actually only had, it was, 10 by 10, 10 cards by 10 cards. I could see there was a little trimmed part at the top, so I know there's another 2 rows, so it's about 120 cards per sheet. Could be even longer, which I might think it is, because there's only 250 cards in the set. So I'm kind of thinking, going, well, if they did that in 6 series, how do you separate 50 cards from an uncut sheet? Like,
I don't know.
And it's not double printed, which is the surprising part. So, is there 6 series? Now, I say this, because everybody says it, and it's sort of one of those things where everybody just goes, it's embellishment or whatever, hearsay, and it's followed through, unfortunately. But nobody has conclusively questioned it or proved it, because you have to actually prove it before I have to unprove it.
Right. Right.
So.
Yeah, so there was Patches O'Houlihan here. It's a great name. Did they have printing and cutting differences for hockey like they did for the O-Pee-Chee baseball?
Sorry, I didn't hear that, but Patches O'Houlihan, that was from Dodgeball, the movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he was the top dodgeball guy, so that's a really kind of cool name. I like that. What did you say, Ryan? Sorry.
Did they have printing and cutting differences for hockey like they did for O-Pee-Chee baseball? Baseball is has always what his threads on the edges, I think, or they always had threads on the edges, I guess is what he's trying to say.
Yeah, I'm just reading the question right now. For the O-Pee-Chee baseball, they're all cut at on the same machine on the slitter. So it depends when the blades were sharpened. Yeah. Like what a slitter is really they slide the whole sheet in. There's these blades that come down. It's like a rounded kind of blade that goes to a tip, and then you can slot it in and it'll slice. I don't know how many sheets you can put in, but obviously O-Pee-Chee put too many, and then that's why you get the rough cuts with O-Pee-Chee, because it was starting to tear. It wasn't
like this. Like this is O-Pee-Chee.
Typical year, yeah.
Mark Messier, and I've actually been quite addicted to this set because of the design. So, and so like the on the top here, it's pretty rough on these cards.
It depends, yeah, because so the sides go through the slitter, and then there's another slitter that kind of cuts the tops and bottom. That must have been unsharp as well. So it's
these cards they're actually they're found in, I guess, garbage condition from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I know. That's the funny part. Gary Kareen did admit to me, he was kind of candid with me. He goes, "Yeah, it was just poor quality control, because when it's hockey season, it's 24/7. It's just let's get them out there. We got to get these things ready to go for January 1st. Boom, out the door, and then it's over in 2.5 months. First series, second series, gone." With baseball, see, they got smart in 74, as we did in 74. We only went to 3 series one time in 1972. Otherwise, from 68 in hockey, from 68 to 73, we had 2 series. Then it went to all 1 series. And same thing happened with baseball. We went all 1 big series. It was just so much easier. But I can't see maintaining 6 series properly. Like how rapids are the kids going and waiting for the next series and then waiting for the next series and the timing and it just getting the right ones. And if they run out, which store do you go to? That's mayhem. 2 series is not bad. 3,
Right.
okay. 5, 6 series, 7 series, I don't know. Now rewind it back to 1954. We have 1 series of hockey. Not a big deal, but they're saying that there was 6 series of baseball, even up here. And I'm going, well, there's 2 different wrappers. It's not like we found a lot of boxes. And it was usually a little paper thing that was on the box, or sometimes the box advertisement on the front would change on baseball. With hockey, it's rather stagnant. It's just 1 series, that's it. So I'm just wondering with the baseball, how can they say that it was in 6 series? I just don't understand that. I can't. It doesn't make the math doesn't work. But someone's going to say it, and and Canadian, like gray stock, okay, because they're rarer. I don't know.
Yeah.
Nobody's proved it because you really don't want to open a pack from that year. So.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the thing that really kind of bothers me too is that you have a lot of people who are opening packs, and I guess like breakers, right? So I see a lot of breakers who are breaking packs from the 1950s, 1960s, and that for me that really kind of bothers me. And breaking kind of bothers me too in a way because it is gambling. So I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we had this discussion a little time before. It's, breaking is breaking. Whether you're breaking it yourself is gambling because you're buying a pack to open it up to see if you get that rookie card or the card you're looking for. It's kind of the same indirectly. The breakers, it's a new form of the way things are going. It benefits some people. Some people can make a living doing it. It sort of benefits that new style of hobby. The vintage stuff doesn't really, in the grand scheme of things. But it's nice to know that if you want to get a position to open a 79 Gretzky pack that you'll never open or be able to afford to open, at least you have a possibility or a chance to get one. So
Yeah.
Gretzky rookie or whatever.
Yeah. Do you happen to like that 1979 OPG or Topps hockey set?
Yeah, I don't mind it at all. It has a nice blue border. There is some lines running through. It just seems like it's in the artwork or something. There's lines running through the tops as well as more so on the O-Pee-Chee. Seems like the top's a little darker blue and doesn't show the lines as much as the lighter blue on the O-Pee-Chee. So I don't mind that set at all. I think it's great. The worst part about that is when those came out, I was in junior high school. And I would go into the variety store there, and I was more into buying some chips or candy, and it was like that choice that you had to me. It's not like we had a lot of money back then. And I remember one time I was going to buy a pack, and then at the back I could see that they had some new potato chips. And they were orange, grape, and cherry flavored potato chips.
Really?
I had to try it. I gave up the pack to try the chips. The chips were horrible. So every time that intent to go in to get more cards or get cards, it was just like, oh, there's this freezies, there's the chocolate bars, there's so much. It was just hard. And I had a sweet tooth as a kid, so it was tough.
Yeah. That's so I just kind of showed you this. This is actually one of my favorite cards from the set.
Bossy?
It is Mike Bossy.
I like that card better than his rookie card. I don't like that stalker that year very much, the 78.
Yeah.
And it doesn't get much respect either. 78-9.
I went on a terrible tear, if you will, of late 60s and 70s hockey. And I just, you know what it was? It was the fact that I never was able to collect hockey as a kid. And so I just started to buy up all this stuff, all these Hall of Famers on the cheap, and I got in deep pretty bad. So
it doesn't cost that much unless you get into the stars, so it's not a bad thing, but it is cumulative, right?
Yeah, and so there are some favorite sets of mine, particularly the 1981 is actually a favorite of mine.
I really like it, and I like it. 71, yeah.
Yeah. So I really enjoy the design of this.
I think I liked it back then, but I hate it today because that circle is so wide that it
Yeah.
off center, and that bothers me, off centerness. Corners don't bother me as much as centering does, so aesthetics is more my thing. So that set bothers me a lot.
Um, there are. It's funny you mention that because there are sets that I would stay away from as a kid, but now that I've taken a second look at them, I'm like, that's actually looks very nice. And this is actually another one that
My
Rob
I
Rob
remember opening those packs in 1970. That more so than 69, because I know my first packs were 69, but 70, I remember standing out front. We used to go to a dairy in the morning because it was open early on our way to school, because other variety stores were only open at 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock. It was a weird, I don't know, just the way it was back in those days. And yeah, the dairy was open, and you go in, you get your pack on your way to school. It was great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's
Um,
funny we were talking about. I was trying to refer back to the 1954 with what you were talking about there. I can't remember. I just had it on the tip of my tongue now. I forgot.
Tops or Parkers.
No, it was the tops. We were just
Okay.
talking about the 54 top set, and we were referring to something. Oh, yeah, the cuts. The cuts on those, you have no top border on those ones. It's very unusual that there's a bottom
Yeah.
border and all the way around, and then they didn't do the top because they were printed head to head. So it was,
Yeah.
I would imagine they did
I,
all of those cards in those early years like that.
so a weird story about that set, the 54 top set, is that that Cy Berger ended up designing it with Woody Gelman or Gelman. I can't remember. Whatever his last name is, Woody Gelman. They designed that set, and Cy Berger ended up presenting it to Joel Shorin, and Shorin hated it. He absolutely hated it, and
Hmm.
he didn't want it printed at all. And Cy had to really fight tooth and nail to get that set printed. And he won. He won. So we,
And for the
we
people out there that don't know Cy Berger or the Shorens or whatever, you just want to quickly say who they
yeah.
were.
So Cy Berger was he was a friend of one of the kids in the company. I believe it was Cy Berger. Anyway, not Cy. It was Cy Berger was a friend of Joel Shorin. I think they went to college together, and then World War II happened, and so after World War II, uh, Berger was looking for a job, and he went to his friend's company, which was Pops, and he got a job with them, and uh, he had a lot of roles within the company, and one of them was to get the players to sign contracts for Tops, and then he also designed the 1952 Top set. So he had like a 50 or 60-year career with Tops, and he was
Amazing.
right up there. A lot of the sets were basically either his design or Woody Gelman, and
Gelman
and
was a set creator mostly.
he was R&D, and he was their art department.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I thought people would like to know that, because we,
yeah,
we, we throw things around a little too
yeah,
carelessly because we know these things, right? So we just kind of let them go. So,
yeah.
yeah, it's nice to know the Shorens, and I think there was more than one Shoren, wasn't there? There was a
It
family of
was
them.
five. Yeah, it was five
Yeah.
brothers that started it. Actually, the company itself went back to 1890s, the tobacco company,
Oh,
and yeah, and in like 1938, the company like basically redesigned itself as a grocer, I believe,
mm.
and then it ended up with chewing gum, and then through like World War II, it had the contract for the military to ship chewing gum overseas, and that's where all the money came from, was from military contracts, government contracts, and Tops has a really fascinating history. It truly does, and I don't think it's talked about enough, to tell you the truth. And same with OPG as well.
Well,
Um,
speaking of which, I have a little video I'd like to share, and then we can talk a
Absolutely.
lot about that afterwards. So, if I have the sharing capabilities here, what would it be under? Share screen and settings? No, that's not it. Where is the share screen on this one? That's interesting. The cam, where is the share screen? Maybe somebody in the, can't really tell on this. It's been a while. I have shared before. It says you're in the show, and I don't see where it has the share, unless it's, do you have share your screen?
Let's see. Solo layout, music. Settings. What?
So you got preset. So all I have is mute, stop camera setting, preset.
If anybody knows in the comment section, let us know.
Let us know. Try to figure that out because there's usually something there, and I don't know why it's not there. I have seen it before, but I'm just maybe not looking in the right place. So, and it's not in the settings. It says standard mirror, audio and visual background. Yeah, so it's not in there. I just don't know where it is.
That's good. Well, if you figure it out, if anyone figures it out, we'll cut and we'll share it because I've seen it actually and it's pretty cool.
Oh, it says video file. Oh, share screen is here in the preset. Okay.
Okay. Cool.
So I'll give it a try. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah.
You got to bear with us, older guys here. I'm a little bit older, but let me share my screen here. And screen share. Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do is going to get it going in the background here. And then that'll share my screen. Oops. Okay, let's exit out of there. And let's put it on pause. There we go. And let me go down. And let me share my screen here. Can you see that?
I cannot.
No? Oh, I have to select, okay, so window, there we go. All right. We're figuring it out, we got it. Select, share, here we go. Can you see that? You can see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, let's play. Here we go. This is from 1985. You hear the sound, do you not?
I can't hear anything, and looks like I'm having. Is it?
Can you not hear the sound?
No, I can't even see it. Tell you the truth.
You can't see it?
No.
I wonder why.
Weird.
That is. It says you're in the show, so stop sharing window stream setting. So it should play the. Everyone can see and hear you. Do I have to mute myself?
I'm. Oh. Bobby, can you hear me at all? You're on mute. Sorry about this, guys.
Sorry, we're just roughing it here. That's why we gonna be a little while doing this. So you can't see the video?
No.
Really?
Yeah, I tried to add the stream and it wasn't.
You don't have to add it. I share my screen. You don't have to add it. It should just automatically come up because I'm sharing my window. I wonder if it's supposed to be window.
Maybe others can see it. I just can't.
Okay, so let me see. video file. Let's try that. Okay, 1 second. So it's a video file. It might be able to share a little better. Let's try that.
There we go.
Can you hear it?
No.
No? You have to hear it, though. That's the thing. Oh, that's unfortunate. So, I'm just wondering here. Just a second. Sorry, we didn't try this out earlier to get it going. It's kind of sad, actually, that we didn't have. We can't get this going.
There we go.
You can hear it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. That's 1 fun dip for you, and 2 bazookas for you, and a package of wrestling cards for you. Ah, excellent choices. Do you know all these goodies are known as Young Canada's favorites? Yep. They're all made by one of the oldest candy companies in Canada, Oh Peachy. They started making candy and bubble gum even before I was a kid.
Really? That long ago?
That long ago. This year is their 75th anniversary. That's a lot of bubble gum, all right. Tons and tons of it.
Gee, wow!
Would you like to hear the story behind that bubble you're blowing?
Yeah!
Well, it was way back in 1911. 2 brothers who lived in London, Duncan and John McDermott, went into business making candy mints, chewing gum, and popcorn. I guess one of them must have had a sweet tooth. Gee, those really were the good old
Beautiful,
days.
eh?
I remember when I was a boy.
They called their company O-Pee-Chee, an Indian word meaning robin, from Longfellow's poem, The Song of Hiawatha. They named the family cottage the same thing, and it's still around, too. The first product they made was a chewing gum called Gypsy, named for real live gypsies said to camp around London at the time. Then they started making popcorn and called it Crackly Nut. It soon caught on at all the movie houses as just a thing to crunch on at a scary double feature.
Came out in the 30s.
By 1928, the McDermott brothers built the big O-Pee-Chee plant at Dundas and Adelaide, which is still in use today. O-Pee-Chee candies and gum just kept getting more and more popular in corner stores and movie theaters. So the McDermott brothers arranged with a company in Buffalo to manufacture and sell special gums and novelties all across Canada and in Great Britain, too. About this time, a young man named Frank Leahy joined O-Pee-Chee as sales manager. He was always outgoing and personable. Everyone loved him and remembers him as the fellow with laughing eyes. Ah, a real stickler for details he was, an excellent businessman, but sensitive, too, about other people's feelings. He used to drive around stores, and he always treated storekeepers like real gentlemen. Same way with everybody. Mr. Leahy worked hard and became president of the company. Then he bought it from the McDermott estate in 1961. Mr. Leahy understood what makes candy fun. He was the one who arranged the long-term agreement with Topps Chewing Gum in Brooklyn, New York, and Sunline in St. Louis, Missouri. This let O-Pee-Chee make their products in Canada. Pretty soon, many different cards, tattoos, and stickers started showing up in packages of O-Pee-Chee gum. There's a whole history of popular movies, music, sports, and TV shows in those cards and stickers O-Pee-Chee has sold over the years. Moms and dads remember some of these great shows. Usually, they were in the top 10. Do you know they started making hockey cards as far back as 1934? Some are real collector's items now, worth up to 1,000 times more than the original price. Any kid who paid 75 cents for a complete set of those rare Beatles cards in the 1960s could get about $300 for them today. But times keep changing, and nothing stands still for long at O-Pee-Chee. There's always plenty of kids waiting for the latest craze in cards, and O-Pee-Chee never lets them down.
There you go.
Cool.
There we go.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. I'm sure I seen some comments there. A few guys were like to see that. Very few people have ever seen that. So, but you can see all the different companies that they used, Sunline and what have you, WF. I forget the other name of the company. So they help them distribute their gum in England and around the world actually. So there's quite a bit there. And go back to the first Gypsy box of gum, and now we know why O-Pee-Chee is called O-Pee-Chee. It's the I think it's the Ojibwe native name for robin.
Oh, okay.
And their first logo was a robin.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep. And yeah, little O-Pee-Chee history.
Are they? Oh, sorry. Are they? Have they been bought out by any company here? Or?
Yeah. It happened in 90. I think it was 92. Nestle's bought them, and then Topps bought them back. I think it's in Upper Deck's hands now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it sort of dissolved its original Canadian roots after 92, and they just moved into a new. They just built a new factory at that time too, which is very surprising. Maybe it's 96 when they sold, but yeah, it was the writing was on the wall, I guess.
Oh, well, I have a baseball O-Pee-Chee.
Oh, batters up.
Yeah, the
36.
Yeah, 19. Well, this is 37.
Oh,
this
yeah,
is,
it would be 37.
This is John Buddy Lewis, and I knew him for a little bit before he passed away.
Wow.
I've collected his cards for a while, but
that was a great set. They did the 36-7 hockey, and they also did the baseball. It's interesting, the baseball, the numbering doesn't kind of run straight through like the hockey does. There's a little bit of a skip in there as a steady run, and a lot of people are talking about, well, it was sort of the wide pen, or they didn't really know. So there's a lot of mystery, and it's funny. The O-Pee-Chee also, the baseball also had a game. There was a spinning game for the hockey. They're very rare to find in hockey, but I've never seen one for the baseball. But they did offer it on the wrappers. So I'd like to see that one day before I go. That's one of the cool things I got to see.
That's interesting. Yeah. So you don't collect any sports cards, do you at all?
No, just rare ones. Ones that are sort of very rare. I do have a few. I don't even know do I have any here. I like Stanley Cup cards. So that's the 72. The very first Stanley Cup card is my favorite card, and that was on the 1924 Maple Crispet.
I was just going to mention that.
Champs, not Maple Crispet. And so I have always been predisposed to Stanley Cup cards, trophy cards for the most part. They never got recognition, yet you're playing the league for that. So here's the baseball question: did they ever show the World Series trophy ever?
Not that I know of.
Isn't that a shame? Something that they play for the whole league. We've added referees and coaches, but the Stanley Cup card is like, oh wait. They say it on the back. They won the Stanley Cup, but having its own card was very interesting that it wasn't really thought of. The Beehives did it through the 40s, the 20s. We did it 30s, nothing. 50s, 60s, nothing, and only until the 70s that we got into the Stanley Cup cards. Late 60s, 70s. Yeah.
So, are you familiar with the Beehive sets at all?
That's one big set. I leave it to the specialists for that. But yeah, I'm very familiar with it. And obviously I document it all, but it's it's not something I pursue. It bothers me the fact that you can never get a full complete set. Or no, if there's only 5 of one guy known because he just had a cup of coffee, they only printed 5 and then they ended it, then you can't get a complete set.
Yeah.
Or 5 people can only, if those 5 people get those short prints, so to speak. And the short prints are usually generally guys who are really nobody in the league for that matter. And that goes back to the short prints even in baseball or in hockey too. You know, they don't always tend to be somebody. So, yeah, that's that kind of, and they're photos too, and they're on a backing board and what have you. Most of them, you know, don't go for much, but it's the rare ones. Again, yeah, out of 1,008, I think there is. You know, there's only a handful that are really worth their salt. Otherwise, they're somewhat a dime a dozen in a sense. You know,
Yeah.
it's $5, $10.
I think they're good if you're trying to complete a run of Hall of Famers on the cheap.
Oh yeah,
But yeah, but
good
it's
photos, great photographs.
yeah,
Nothing wrong with it. Actually, it's nice to have a set. It's worthwhile pursuing because you can do it on the cheap, right? For the most part. And there's a lot of, you can have a beautiful booklet full of those, and they did the trophies though, so that was really
okay.
nice. Yeah, all the different trophies actually. So
Yeah, there are a lot of Hall of Famers in the Beehive set that normally, if you were to grab a regular card of, you would be paying a lot of money for these players, and some of them I don't even think have cards. To tell you the truth, Bill Durnan is a guy that I actually I tried to buy a premium. I forget exactly. It was the Quaker Oats premium, and if you're familiar with them,
yep.
and it got lost in the mail, and I've not seen it since. So they said they actually refunded me, but I was really disappointed because it's Bill Durnan.
Yeah. Well, I got a good little story about Bill Durnan. It's actually George Kennedy, who owned Parkhurst. He actually grew up with Bill Durnan, and they were kids on the street. They would play, and he would, and Durnan would strap magazines to his legs for goal pads.
Oh.
So that little story, I just thought I'd put that there. So they knew each other growing up and what have you. So kind of interesting. They grew up on the same street, played ball hockey outside. Enough said. Yeah.
Yeah. It was I kind of latched on to some of those premiums, and some of the players. Trick Rhoda was one that I just grabbed recently, and
so the all-time greats you're talking from 55. Yeah. Those are nice. Yeah.
Yeah. There was another Rocket Richard was another one that I had to pick up. His cards are just super expensive.
Yeah, you can't find his Quaker Oats though.
Yeah.
If that's it, well, there's 3 short prints in the set, and he's one of them. That card will run you 25,000 beat up.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's impossible. Well, actually, go ahead.
The 55, is it the 55?
Yeah, it's the 55. It's the only Quaker Oats. Yeah, 55 Quaker Oats. Because me and a friend of mine, we did an article. We wrote it and researched it to death, and he, through miscuts, ended up putting the whole sheet together, just through miscuts, because they were so poorly cut. Another, Parker's tragedy, actually, because they're very similar to Parker's. Obviously, they were affiliated, or they sold it off to them, over to Quaker Oats, so they could do their own. But there was a contest, and that's the short print. You could get a free pair. You can win a bicycle, a free pair of skates, or a couple crests. So that's what happened with those. It's funny though that most of the people who won, because it was out of Peterborough, which is just north of Toronto, that's where the factory was. Is within a 60-mile radius is 70% of the winners of the bicycle. So somebody knew somebody. It's like, oh, here's the Richard to finish that run, because you had to submit a full set.
Yeah.
Or partial sets with certain ones. So they short printed 3 cards out of that set, and we put it all together and figured that all out, because they actually submitted who the winners were. They had to submit sheets.
Oh, really?
And I did see some ads when I was doing some research that people were looking for them in the newspaper. They put ads. Looking for Maurice Richard, looking for King Clancy, looking for, it's just...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they're the big stars of the set, too, which is funny. So...
Yeah.
Very interesting. There's a lot of weird little. See, that's the nuance. Like it's 55 Quaker Oats, but there's a heck of a story behind it, and a lot of shady business going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So you kind of reminded me of something. So I picked up this card not long ago. The Ted Lindsay and the 53
Oh yeah,
Parkers.
I was just doing the write up on the 53 just the other day. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, nothing super special in there except there's just the one error back, which is it's the Fleming McKell. They did a print where they missing some of the back information. Then they had both of the back, and then it was French only and all that other stuff. So it's kind of interesting.
So, I had just a really bad time trying to grab this particular card. I've been looking for it for a long time, and uh, obviously it's probably because it's Ted Lindsay, but the other thing too is these cards. Like I love them. I love the artwork behind them, but these cards are usually found in like horrible condition.
Well, it's funny. Baseball in 1952 said giant cards. That was the first thing they said. This is the first time that Parker's put on their packs and the display box giant cards. And they actually, George Kennedy, because he was talking to Warren Bowman, they were friends, and he said, yeah, the kids really like the large cards. So that's what made him go to the large cards in 53 right there.
Oh, really?
Yep.
So I actually I picked up maybe a dozen or so of these cards, and the Harry Howell and the what is this, the Andy Bathgate. The only problem was that, and if you can see this,
Oh, paper loss, yeah, on the back.
yeah, and I think I paid a little too much, and as what they call it, FOMO, I guess.
So is this what you were talking about? You went too far and kind of got a little
Yeah,
deep on it.
yeah.
Makes sense.
So at some point I may replace them. I'm not entirely sure. It's like that kind of like
Yeah, and I think there's
bonded.
something. I think one player is pictured as the other. I'm not sure who that player is. I'm just trying to remember now. There is
Is
there's a couple.
yeah. So was it Moore?
Was it Dickie Moore
Dickie Moore
and somebody else?
is actually Rocket Richard.
No.
Is that what the,
Oh, there's
is that what
always
they're
been that
thinking?
question. There's always been that question, but no, I don't think. No, it's not that. There's two cards that are definitely twisted there. It's either 53 or 54. I can't really remember at this time. Like I said, I'm documenting stuff like crazy, and you lose your sense of mind of recall. And when it's
Yeah.
all over and done with, it'll be easier because I won't have to be so deep in everything. So, but yeah, they did a little. They had some screw ups along the way, but not many by Parkers, that's for sure, or Tops for that matter.
Yeah.
They kept things pretty stringent.
There's another. So you said there's another back with these two, and I've seen it. I'm
No,
not really.
just with the one card, the Fleming McKell.
Oh, okay.
Do you have Fleming McKell?
I do not.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
I've heard the name.
The price, the price definitely will go up as you try to find the different variations. So if they did a corrected version, so the first version that's the most common is really, then they stop the presses, obviously they change that, and then they change it again. I know George Kennedy was very conscientious about what he did, and he offered stuff to kids. He was a really good guy running the company. He was thoughtful. He really cared about the card business, and very much like we've seen in the O-Pee-Chee, Frank Leahy. He was a hard nose, but he was friendly and happy-go-lucky. And if you worked well, then he rewarded you as he did.
Yeah. Not OPG, but Parkhurst really reminds me of Bowman. It's just their style and the cards they came out with, and I mean it's kind of too bad that a lot of the 53, especially in the 54, the cards they don't really hold up, and what I mean by that is there's a lot of like damage associated, a lot of, I guess, like this card in particular, uh, it kind of fades if and I think that's the stock.
It might be, yeah. But also there was in 52 up, they started they offered albums up to 55. So you could get this album, you get these insert pages. They held about 8 cards each, and you'd put them in there, and in this kind of folio fold cardboard thing. And so people would mount them in there, and maybe they got rubbed against the backs, because they weren't a full turn page. It was like a little piece of cardboard that you'd mount, and there was 13 different cardboards in there. And then the last space was definitely you would glue in your favorite player. It was a space for it on the album, which is kind of interesting.
Oh,
so,
wow.
How many Richards have stuff on the back missing? Lots, because he would be most people's favorite player, and that's why there's a lot of paper loss on that Richard in that year. And getting back to the 54 baseball, I forgot there's no Mickey Mantle in there, and that's because of Bowman.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much Parkerson, Bowman, and everything's affected with everything. It's one step after the other.
Yeah, and it seems like everybody kind of knew each other as well. It's kind of a small industry to begin with, but they all seem to know each other, and so, you still had like lawsuits and stuff, but it's especially like in the 1940s, more ball players were actually suing companies back in the 1940s and 50s for their likeness, and that's the one thing I think with the I don't know if you followed the Panini lawsuit.
Yeah, I've been following you said there was something wasn't it 90, 91 or something? Was there something else that was going on with the Trade Commission and the...
So this is recent, but the 1941 is really, I think, the first time when you had a ball player sue a company over issuing his likeness on a card, and that was Johnny Mize, and he sued Gum Products Inc. Here in Boston, and he lost his lawsuit. He lost his suit because the judge said that you're an entertainer, you don't really have the right to privacy, basically, and so that was today we kind of laugh at that and say, like, what was the judge thinking? But at the time, like,
I understand, but that comes back to logos and. In today's world, but back then it's just the likeness of the person, so I guess it's a personal infringement. I would say, opposed to the logo or him wearing an outfit or uniform. When he's not in uniform, it would be a different story. I would imagine.
Yeah. So Brendan Ryan here, he's got an interesting question. Wasn't Canada the first to use ink brighteners?
That I don't know. We don't get into the printing too much. I've never really talked to any printer that ever worked at O-Pee-Chee or Parker's for that matter. Well, actually, Parker's used Ashton Drake. They were their printer in 1955, something like that, and but you don't know any information. I heard, we know from the 80s and 90s stuff, but going back, I really don't know. And I don't follow past 1990 and what happened. I know there was lots of different things that were going on, obviously, because a lot of new cards were coming in.
Was Ashton Drake, is that a printing company?
It was, yes. Okay.
I'll try to find some information for you.
I'll send you the actual name, but I'm almost pretty sure it's Ashton Drake.
Okay.
A-S-H-O-N, Ashton, or whatever.
Oh, okay. What I found really interesting about this Panini lawsuit was that they said that there's only a specific number of printers that are capable of printing the cards today. And I honestly don't know how they print a lot of these cards. I don't really collect modern cards. They're too shiny for me, and
it's all about the shine. You know that.
It hurts my eyes. So.
You can't appreciate the card unless you twist your hand a few times and do the light.
Yeah.
Like when you're trying to get it out of the light, they're trying to get it in the light. It's like big difference.
Yeah, so they said that like there's like only specific companies that can do this stuff, and people, in fact, that can print these cards. And I think that's where a lot of the problems lie for that particular company and for Fanatics.
So I got a question. I got a question for you, Ryan. How do you feel about Fanatics and Panini? What's going on right now? I know you did a video on it,
Yeah. Um,
but
I'm not happy with it. I'm not happy. I don't think it's good for the collector.
do you think Panini had to sue them?
Um,
Because that's really the question. It's not
yeah,
about, you know.
I think that it's the last choice. I think it should be the last choice of any company or person to sue another person or a company. I think if you can't come to an agreement or a decision, maybe with
It's
an
going to cost them.
arbitrator,
So,
yeah, it's going to cost them more than they know. Both companies, in fact. I don't think there's a true winner out here. I
no,
really don't.
I think you're right on that one.
And it's yeah. I mean, I always I always love to go through lawsuits and the legal side of this stuff. Um, but that's just me. I know a lot of collectors would rather just, hey, I just want the card. I just want a card of the player, and nothing else matters. And I respect that. Um, it's it's just the fact that the hobby has a really hard time with its own history. You know, you don't have a lot of people on. I hate to say this, but on YouTube, there aren't a whole lot of people who talk about the history of the hobby or the players of the past, and that to me kind of bothers me because it looks like we're going backwards as a hobby, and we're not like, studying cases from like say 1980, the top first flare case, and that's something that happened like twice. So
Hmm.
again, why are we making the same? We're going down the wrong path time and time again. It's because we're not learning. We're not learning from our
But isn't there precedent set on previous cases that should follow through today?
yeah. The
But then
19
they changed the law a little bit, and then things are adjusted and changed. Like, Fanatics is trying to, take over. Whatever Fanatics wants to do is fine. It's up to them, and Panini as well. But I don't think the license should be exclusive. I think that hurts us. I think we're even at that point that you can say right now, um, we wouldn't be talking. All these shows wouldn't be on if it was just Tops from 89, 90, and they just kept going, and there was no Upper Deck, there was no anybody else. Would we have all this online stuff? Would the cards be going crazy? No, because it'd be
right,
one manufacturer. So what helped the hobby and spread things out in competition, fed it very well, was having the other companies come in and each paying their equal share. They say that I know people say, well, it's easier to just deal with one company. It's like, no, you can make more money from more companies coming in, and getting their licenses, but limit those licenses. You can do 8 products, you can do 8 products, you can do 8 products. You add a few more, you can only do 6 products each. And, so you don't kill the marketplace. And I think that's one thing that they don't look at is like, yeah, you can keep giving out licenses, but it becomes too much at one point. AKA, look at ProSet, you know, and then they're just printing 24/7. So there's nothing there. It's just like, yeah, well, here's a license. You can do what you want. 24/7 out of business. Bye bye.
yeah. It's funny. So okay, so the exclusivity of the licenses themselves. I heard that there was a 20-year license
Yeah.
given out, and I've never heard of that before. That seems very unusual to me, um, and I'm not a big fan of that. Again, I like what you said, is that hand out licenses to multiple companies if you want, and
But they have
then
to qualify, and they get more license. They
yeah,
get more products to put out if they're a larger company that can afford it. You're not going to give a guy 8 licenses who's
right,
only worth 5 million, and the other guy's worth 50 million. Like, yeah, okay, there'd be a
right,
little bit difference, and let your quality shine through and win that way. If you
right.
have
So
something to approach.
yeah, absolutely. And so the other thing too is this right here. This is the Pro Set. So
Oh,
I I blame my cousin for this. And cousin, I love you very much, but this is a problem. And I in all honesty, like I joke about this set, but as a lot of people do. but this was really kind of my introduction to hockey cards
Oh,
when I was a kid, and um, we tried to complete the sets, and we didn't know at the time that they weren't really worth anything, and we didn't really know. I didn't.
or did
Really,
it matter?
I don't think it did matter.
Oh,
I don't think it really did. There were certain players that I wanted to collect, and this set provided that need.
hmm.
So so I just picked up a couple of these cards quite recently, and Sergei Fedorov was one of them. The other one was a Brett Hall. Let me see if I have it here. It's actually autographed, and I uh, I grew up with these players, so Pro Set was out there for basically for me, and I didn't know that they actually had a golf set too at the time.
I didn't
And
know that either.
yeah, and unfortunately, let me see if I have it available here. Um, yeah, they issued a golf set in 1990,
Because
and
football and baseball and hockey wasn't enough, I guess.
yeah, so actually, this is it right here. This is the if you can see that. Yeah, Ben
Well,
Crenshaw.
that would
It's
be an
all good.
early golf set because there was only something in the 70s and then it went not much after that, really, in golf. Golf didn't get
Yeah,
much attention. And then again, basketball didn't get much attention, too, from Tops, actually. They missed 10 years there. So,
yeah,
kind of unfortunate.
and so I also picked up Arnold Palmer. And do you follow golf at all?
I know the basics pretty good.
Okay,
Old basics, a little bit of the new.
so Arnold Palmer really doesn't have any cards out there. He's got like one from like 1965,
It's
and
got that
maybe
70 set that he's in there, I think.
yeah, the Barrett. So I think it's the 1971 Barrett Gold Flake, like the Champions set, which is quite nice. But for the most part, he doesn't have anything out there, which is
Hmm.
really strange to me.
Yeah.
And I guess here's the other one. 1981 Donruss Golf.
The Donruss, yeah.
Thanks, Tony. I appreciate that.
I knew it was something like that, yeah.
That's a really interesting set. That I really like Donruss. I like the design. Obviously, I'm a design guy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that 81 Donruss golf set, it was the proceeds for every pack you bought or set you bought, the
Mm-hmm.
proceeds of that would go to help uh, the golf association with their programs to get kids to play golf. So that I thought was really interesting. I didn't know that, and I had to read that in the newspaper at the time.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Interesting.
there's not a whole. I mean, now I think they're producing more golf cards, but I just picked up.
Not so much, though.
Yeah, no,
And guys stay in the league for a long time and then they're kind of gone and then they come back for another year. So you think that would stimulate people.
yeah,
But
and
golf is a leisure thing, so.
and so I picked up this quite recently.
Oh.
It's 1914 Mozuma,
Mm-hmm.
and it's John Ball. And the funny thing is, I didn't realize that I already had a John Ball card
Oh.
from this set, but I think it's a set of like 20 players and like maybe 50 to 100 cards.
Subjects.
Yeah, so you have like
Multi-subject, yeah.
yeah you have all the days Hall of Famers pretty much, including Harry Harden. I know Ted Ray is not in the Hall of Fame, but he's very popular. And the one guy that's missing is Francis Lamette, which I'm not happy about, but it is what it is.
Mm. Yeah, I've
So,
seen some nice old Bobby Jones cards and a few other nice old ones just recently. You know the old names. I know the names from the 60s, 70s, and 80s mostly.
okay.
And I didn't really follow it much after that because I, wasn't really watching TV at that point. I was just working and doing what I did. Pete and Repeat card is a classic. Pete Rose and Son. Oh yeah.
Yeah, Pete Rose is. I think I want to get your take on this too. Do you think Pete Rose is his cards are worth more if he's out of the Hall of Fame than he would if he was just another Hall of Famer.
Worth more.
Yeah,
Wow, that's interesting. Why would it be worth more if he was out of the Hall of Fame?
because of his notoriety, I think.
Well, his notoriety's there either way.
Yeah.
So
So usually,
if he's in the Hall of Fame, it should be worth more. If he's out of the Hall of Fame, it'd be worth less. Right? You would
yeah,
assume. Because if you're collecting Hall of Famers, and you're going to pay for him more than you would if he's not a Hall of Famer.
right. Well, um, let me see if where
If
is
he
it?
didn't gamble, he'd be a super Hall of Famer.
I think he'd be just another Hall of Famer for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think he'd be more revered because it does taint his persona a bit.
I mean, you can get Hall of Famers really cheap. I picked this one up for like $2 and it's autographed. So, I mean, I don't know if they're watering down the Hall of Fames. I know with the Football Hall of Fame just announcing some of the players that they're going to select. I don't know if you follow the Football Hall of Fame at all, but they have I think it's the strangest process that you can have for electing someone for the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it needs to. I see. I'm a big Hall guy, so I like to have more Hall of Famers,
Yeah.
and I think there's enough room for it.
Yeah, I think the Hall of Fame has changed a lot since, I guess, going back to its inception. Because I think, when did they start the Hall of Fame for hockey? Like 50s or something? 60s?
For hockey.
Yeah.
I want to say 1944,
Okay.
45, something around there.
Yeah, so you had all those years of those players that were sort of current at that time. And we moved through, and they keep voting in older players from way back when. And that's kind of stopped now. Now they've kind of weeded out, okay, we've kind of thought through everybody. There's still a few guys who are fighting for stuff, but, now going forward, it's, oh, he's going in the Hall of Fame. Oh, this guy's going in the Hall of Fame. And it just keeps adding to the list. And, there's a lot of great players who help those Hall of Famers that never will get the nod, but that's unfortunate too. But then there's some guys, you don't really see them as Hall of Famers. I guess there's different tiers of Hall of Famers, 1, 2, or 3.
I've heard this guy too picked up, and I've heard a lot of people say that there's no way that he should have been inducted in the Hall of Fame. And
tough call. Got a lot of Stanley Cups behind him. See, there's a lot of guys who are defensemen who help the team a lot. And I still go to the NHL alumni monthly luncheons. We haven't went for a couple months because it's been summer, but they talk about people who are amazing, and you just go, really? I never. Oh yeah, everybody. Oh yeah, watch that guy. When he was in juniors and then he came for the NHL, he didn't last long. He said the guy was an amazing player. He just got with the wrong people or someone didn't like him, the coach didn't. All these circumstances that, and they said, yeah, the guy was amazing, probably one of the best players I ever saw. And here's Harry Howell saying that, about somebody else. It's like crazy, because I'd sit beside Harry Howell at lunch and, when he was alive, obviously. And it's amazing what you hear. It's the backstory. And we only hear what's in the newspapers or what's told on the news or other sport news. And there's so much other information. And if you dig deep enough, like you and I do on a lot of different things, you discover different things about their life, their past life, what they did, where they were. I think the Hall of Fame, you have to understand that a lot of guys got into coaching. A lot of guys did refereeing in the NHL. They did other things. They ran leagues. So that's sort of all. And we do have builders. We have that classification in the Hockey Hall of Fame. So we do have the player and the builder. So it's nice when you have a little bit of both, that it should get them there. And I know there's a lot of guys who aren't. I don't think they throw enough. Like the builder is like the Conn Smythe, right? He's the builder. Even though he was a player early on, but he wasn't that kind of player. I guess it was more about him being a builder. But there's a lot of guys who are players and went on to probably more success as a builder, or as a coach for so many years and doing all these other things.
That kind of reminds me of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit of everything. Yeah.
Yeah. For baseball, we don't have that.
No,
There's no.
you need to have that.
Yeah. And that's too bad. And I think that may have changed with the Negro leaguer there, Buck O'Neill, who just got in.
Oh, okay, yeah.
His career, well, it was okay. It's not. I mean, even as a Negro League ball player, as a player, it's not quite there as a Hall of Famer would be, like say Monty Irvin. Right?
Hmm.
So you look at Monty Irvin's stats as a Negro leaguer, and then he's batting close to 400 lifetime, and then you look
Amazing.
at yeah, I mean he was Mr. Murder. He was incredible as a
But it
batter.
is a different league, and it's not the
Yeah,
same in the
right,
same way. But it is something to be said, right?
right. So so I mean there's a huge difference between Monty Irvin and Buck O'Neill as a Hall of Famer. And Buck O'Neill seems more like he's in the contributor category that they could just say like, okay, well, same with Bob Uecker, in fact, um, that their contributions to the game outweighed what they did on the field. And you could make a huge case for I'm sure a lot of ball
Well,
players.
Euchre was a commentator too, right?
He's
Yeah,
very, very beloved guy.
yeah.
You know,
I remember
plus
listening to him.
plus he was on Mr. Belvedere as well.
Oh, was he really? Oh, yeah, that's right. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, Mr. Belvedere. That's
Yeah,
going back a little bit.
yeah. And so I don't know if I showed you this, but I picked up Tim Horton. Uh,
There you go. That's nice.
yeah, I really love this set. I love the design, obviously, and the players as well. And Tim Horton has an amazing story behind him.
He's got the one of the most interesting that could make a movie out of that his life, like a really good movie.
Yeah,
But it's a sad, tragic one too. So there's a lot of things about Tim Horton, like player wise, great player, strong defenseman. Did he make many goals? No, but there's another guy. Like is he Hall of Fame material? Like people that are revered. Like I always talk about that. Like Eddie Shack. Like Eddie Shack, he was. If you say who was the entertainer in the NHL through the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, Eddie Shack.
yeah,
You know, he had a persona, and he did things on the like he used to dress up like a clown and go on the ice, and the things he did, it was really kind of funny. So should he be in the Hall of Famer? Because everybody knows Eddie Shack, like for some reason,
yeah,
and he clear the track. Here comes Sack. You got a lunch pail after him. It's just
yeah.
So there's guys like that should be get the nod and be put in.
And the thing too is that we are kind of on the outside looking in a way on these players, and the guys who really knew them the best were their teammates, and if their teammates are in the Hall of Fame and they have a vote in the Hall of Fame, obviously they're going to vote for, not always, but they're going to vote for the guys who are playing, and because they know them in a different way than we do. And there's one guy that I think I really think maybe should be in the Hall, but I'm not sure. Derek Anderson.
Yeah, that's a tough call on that one. That's a 73 tops
Yeah.
there. That's a nice one. Yeah, he's sort of the Namath of, in a certain way. They were both in the 70s. They were all around everywhere.
Yeah,
Sanderson didn't wear nylons, but any which way. So yeah, Sanderson stood out, and his partying, and he did a lot of things. But he kind of set up Orr for that goal, and yeah, it's a tough call.
yeah.
Tough call. Who do you really put in?
Bobby, you are right
There you
here.
go. Yep.
You know what? So I'll tell you a funny story about this particular card. I bought this card, and I didn't. It wasn't. I was like, "Where is this card?" They said it was delivered in the mail, and I'm going through and I'm looking and I'm not seeing it, and so I happen to have kept all the envelopes, and they were in the trash. So I went through.
You kept them though. You didn't
And
throw out the trash. That's it.
right.
Right.
So Anyway, the card was in there, but it was in a way that I couldn't see it.
Ah,
So,
gotcha. That's happened to
uh,
me.
yeah, and um, so what I did was I ordered another card, and then I got both cards, and I gave one to a buddy of mine, and I I just happened to have looked and seen what happened was I think this card was on the bottom of a cardboard, and so I couldn't see it. And, um, some dealers, it's they overpack this stuff.
Yeah, you can damage it getting it off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and if you're buying from overseas, from like say Great Britain, um,
they don't
they
package properly.
they don't package properly, and I don't think they realize either A, how rare some of this stuff is, or um, just the expense associated with just bringing it over from England or France or Germany
Hmm.
uh, over here. And so I, I don't know what you do about it. You know,
There's not much you can do about it, but you know, when you're putting tape on, I'm going to take a piece of tape here. See the piece of tape? All you do is you bend the little tab over, and then you got a pull tab. So when you put it over something, you'll be able to just grab the tab and pull, and it's got a little handle on it. See that? There you
yeah,
guys go.
uh,
And,
pa-
and do that with all your tape and wrap it around.
yeah,
So when the guy opens it, he can just take the tape off. It'll hold. It's just that little extra tab, and that's one of the best things I can tell people.
painter's tape works. That blue painter's tape works pretty well.
Yeah,
Um,
if they put a tab on it.
yeah,
But it
yeah.
does come off. Yes, I understand. Easier for sure. Yeah.
I sometimes I feel like a doctor
Yeah,
doing
you have to
doing
be.
surgery. You know, trying to get this stuff off, and you can damage a card. And one of the cards that I almost damaged was 1914. So it was lucky. It was just sheer luck that the card didn't get damaged, and um, you know, it's maybe they'll figure it out over there in
Well,
Great
we could
Britain.
do a whole show on cards and how to package them and how not to package them.
Yeah,
Or people just throw things in bubble envelopes, and I'm sometimes surprised they'd arrive without being damaged. And then there's the other one that's overpacked, and then they ran over it with something. I don't know. It just like it's hit or miss.
yeah. Well,
And
there was a story that Dustin, the personal sports card dad, had said where he had two of his graded cards were, I guess, run over by a truck,
yeah, there was tire marks or something on them. It's like wow.
and they survived.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. But I mean, I forget, but did he put him on the top of his car or something? I'm not sure.
Oh, and he drove away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
That's always in a movie. I just watched that. What was it? John Cleese and Fish Called Wanda.
oh,
He drives away and his briefcase is on the top of the car. It's just like, yeah, once you're enamored with something and you get carried away, stuff can happen.
yeah. Any cards that you're investigating right now, or anything like that?
I'm actually just going through the sets and really delving into more of the history or looking at any, like I said, nuance, anything different about the set, anything that's not noted, that's not really been said before. You know, we get into 57 Parkhurst, the wrapper has so many errors in the spelling of the players, Sawchuk, and which is a typical one. He's usually spelled wrong. But there's like 7 errors out of 20 something because actually the wrapper is sort of the checklist, has all the names of both teams on the side. And it's a weird set because the first 50 are Montreal Canadiens, and then the Toronto Maple Leafs are numbered 1 to 52. It's just like, they're just winging it out there, at that
Yeah,
time. It was just a matter, as long as the cards got out, they didn't matter. But in today's world, we look back and we compare, we get to compare the history, whereas they were making history then. So going forward, it wasn't like there was much of a template or someone you could email and ask, or, but you did have, like I said, George Kennedy, who owned Parkhurst, him and Warren Bowman, good friends. and I think they all kind of knew each other, so it was really kind of interesting. There's lots of things.
Yeah. So, the 1911 C-55. I was thinking about that this morning, and have we ever found any cards inside of a pack?
For that issue,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, in a pack, we really haven't had an unopened pack, but what we have seen is people bring to market the exact pack, but I mean, it's been opened, and they have basically a full set stuffed inside of it for keeping. Now, to match that up and find that exact pack, it's hard to find anyways. So if you're looking for a certain brand that that the cards are issued in, and it's in that wrapper, and the guy had a full set, well, 1 and 1 makes 2. It's not like you can look online, because it take you a long time, especially Canada, because our population survival rate is obviously far less. So you have to assume that it came from there, and once you see 1 or 2 or 3, then it's like, yeah, okay. So, but no, we haven't had any unopened packs that I've seen. I think a lot of people try to open them, but there's no definition of the exact year, the exact date, factory number. There's no way, because they, especially Imperial Tobaccos, they made 50 different sets.
Yeah.
Girls, flowers, chickens, alphabet. Like, there were so many different things they were doing. So you can't really tell and itemize it down. This could be this card. No, it's like, it could be one of these many cards in these many years, and it's really unfortunate, but that's just the nature of the beast, and that's we're well over 100 years now.
And the other thing too is we don't have any artwork for any of these cards, the tobacco cards.
Well, we did find the C56 printing stone.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh,
so
wow.
That was one thing that we did find. Now, there's no artwork on it, but it did have the numbers and the back design on this stone. And it also had, we knew it was made in Canada, because it also had Cowan chocolates and something with Toronto on it. So we knew, and it was found in Canada, obviously. And so we have found one of those. My friend found it he went to a little small show, and he found it sitting on some guy's table, and he just kind of went, hey, and it had all the names of the players, like Newsy Lalonde and everything. They were all there. But, that's when they did stone lithography, so they would, have to print it on the stone, on the piece of paper, and use, ink and whatever. It was a different process. But that is the only thing that's ever been found. If you're going to find anything, that's probably the best thing you could probably find. It's very historical. It didn't go for much in classic auction, I think 15 grand or something, but it's like I don't know. Can't put a price on that piece.
What do you think if they actually found original artwork of Newsy Lalonde or somebody?
Well, there isn't original artwork, really, I guess. Most of the photos were renditions and taken from photos of the team, or little small photos of that they had. Photos is not a big thing in hockey. And I was going through a few things. Where was I, in 51 or 52? I had original photo of Gordie Howe, and that's his rookie card, and that's the original photo, and it was kind of neat. And then they used one hockey player on one of those men from the hockey games. They used this guy's image, the same one, on the hockey player game. So, and there was something else too. It was really interesting. So I have those things. I was going to include them, but I said no, I'll keep them out for now. If I write an article, it'd be nice to put those things in and do it themed that way.
Is there any article that was extremely difficult to research?
The Studley one was probably the hardest. Now that comes from 1932. The Studley cards were a restaurant. It's sort of a prime rib and apple pie kind of place back in the day. So our kind of restaurants. Anyways.
Yeah.
So, I discovered a card at the Hall of Fame, and it was serendipitous how it happened. I took a picture of a 54 full box. It was in this display around the back end of the Hall of Fame. They had this little sort of tunnel that kind of led around this area, and then they had stuff in the back there. So there was this 54 box, full box. This was the O-Pee-Chee had it on loan there to the Hall of Fame, and it did come to market. Anyways, they had that, and then they had the Bubble Boy, which is that O-Pee-Chee little pewtered bubble blowing. what we see, sort of emblematic of O-Pee-Chee and, you know, Age of Innocence and what have you. And then beside there was a Studley card. It looked like a unfolded matchbook almost, about the same size, or it looked like it was like a cutout from a newspaper, kind of like a narrow, long thing.
Okay.
Because they're about 5 inches long by about 1.5 inches or something like that. They're very thick, actually, I found them. And I was always wondering about that. That was in my archives for a long time. It was just kind of one of those pictures that was cool, because I'd show that and I'd crop those other things out just to show the 54 box, because wax was my really big deal. And then I seen that card somewhere else, and I ended up buying it. Paid a lot of money for it, because I said, man, okay, so there's two. So I know it's not a one-of-a-kind. It is a card. And the back has the half of the Toronto Maple Leaf schedule from the latter half, or the first half or the latter half, whichever it is. And it's artwork done by Jimmy Thompson, who was an artist for, he was one of the first early artists that did Iron Man. Oh, I can't remember which one it was. It was Iron Man? No, I think it's somebody else. But he was one of the first graphic novel artists. And he also worked for Disney as well.
Oh, cool.
So he was really one of your top artists at the time. So he did the artwork. And the Studley restaurant issued them somehow. We still haven't figured that out. So it was digging a little bit here, a little bit there, and then a few more showed up. And this took 10 years. So, and now we think we have a full set at 8 or 10. And they are numbered, and it is called Hockey Series, and you have these different stars. Most of it's very Maple Leaf heavy, but Studley's was a, you know, and Studley was actually located just down the street from the Mutual Street Arena, so it was like a 2-minute walk. So people would eat there, the Leafs would go there. They advertised in the magazines at the time, so there was something that, and these are so scarce that maybe it was just handed out for if you ordered a special thing, or I don't know what was going on. So that was hard. But I'm sort of at that point where I'm very happy, and it took a long time to write it. But it's a great article because you have Jimmy Thompson, you have all these hockey stars, Howie Morenz, and you have, it's funny, even they have the trainer from the Leafs, even in that set. So you can tell that it was a preferred set of people that probably often visited there, you know. Oh, we're going to do a set, and, you know, I don't know.
What year or so do you think?
1932.
32?
So it predates any hockey cards, actually, for that time period between, you know, obviously we went through the 20s and, you know, before the 33 boom of hockey cards started.
Huh.
So it's really kind of interesting. There's a lot of strange ones like that where you get little dribs and drabs over the course of the last 20 years, and then it comes to fruition, and then one piece kind of puts it all together, and then you can write a great article. And then you write it and move on.
Yeah.
There's 50 other things that you really want to do, because there's so much that I have partial pieces to, and you just slowly fill them up as time goes on. And some things you'll never finish, but it, you know, hope is a dangerous thing, and it's a wonderful thing too.
Yeah, there's I'm holding on to a lot of articles just because I'm always kind of like not sure if it's the entire I guess spotlight, if you will, if it's the entire portion. There may be something that I'm missing, you know, and so I've held on to like several articles, and in certain cases I've actually had to do a video on it just for the little bit that I actually have, just because, you know, I always kind of say that the majority of the hobby history is kind of like in pieces. It's not all there, and
there's very few people pursuing it, so the pieces would get larger if more people did something. But it's good you have those. You're waiting for that right information, because most people find something, they go off half-cocked to write an article, and they think they figured it all out, and they really haven't. Because then I said, I can punch some holes in it. I said, why don't you just contact me, or contact somebody who's really got some research in there, and maybe can help you through it. And then there's a lot of presumption in there, and it's just like, you know, they just want to get the article out because, you know, and that's wrong. You know, I don't like to write anything that's I'm really questioned, but some things are pretty much a lay down. You can get away with it and go, it's very hard to say.
Yeah. So there's enough stuff out there of like say talks, even Bowman, right?
Hmm.
But um, I'd see a lot of garbage articles, and I wouldn't even consider a lot of this stuff articles. It's just maybe a paragraph or something.
It's just a rehash of the same people in the set, and
Yeah.
there's no angle. There's no angle. There's no. I don't write anything unless there's an angle, unless there's something unique or different or new, that hasn't been noted. It's
Yeah.
it's about bringing new information, not just reading for the sake of reading. Seems
Just
kind
yeah.
of useless at times.
So, yeah. Never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Yeah.
It's so true. It's so true. I mean, and the funny thing is, Bobby, is that the hobby is it's surrounded by good stories, and unfortunately, I mean, in the back right here, I have all these auction catalogs, and I think that's where all the good stories have come from. Is catalogs.
Yeah,
Because
there's a lot of embellishment on that shelf behind you there.
and I use this stuff for reference material, but you have to be very careful of what kind of material that you're adding. Like I never add anything that's written in these things because I mean I'll give you a really great example. The 1933 Gaudi Napple Lajoie, right,
Hmm.
or even the 1909 T206 Hornets Wagner. I mean those two are perfect examples of never letting the truth get in the way of a good story. There are
Mm.
stories that are not backed up by actual fact,
Well,
and
we were talking about that earlier. Is the dark back Canadian? Was there 6 series? Nobody's going to answer those questions except what's going around right now, which is not really the truth because there's no evidence to support it. But it makes for a great article. The
yeah,
six, because everybody's copying everybody out there. They see it on Wikipedia, and Wikipedia has things wrong all the time. And you copy from them, and it ends up on 50 other websites, and it's like, well, they all check out, right?
we see it. We see that a lot of these websites are copying from Wikipedia, and I think that's a huge no-no with Society for American Baseball Research. Is that they don't like to have their people do that because when you go through the list of what is other source material, when you click on that, sometimes it just comes up with a blank, and like you're like, where's the actual source?
Where's the beef?
Exactly, exactly. So
So it is kind of sad, and I think it's really unfortunate that nobody's really put the time into putting a good story together. And they rather just get the basic information out and let the story be the story.
yeah,
A few nice pictures of something, and then that's it. And people write to keep writing. Now, what we have now is the future. We have this Chat GPT, which either you know about it or you don't. Out there, here, whatever. It's that automated thing that looks up everything, the whole internet at its disposal. Now, if enough bad information is out there in the wrong hands, it collectively gets all that bad information and it becomes truth. At that point, that's scary.
yeah.
And it's a scary world going forward in not even just sports cards. I'm just talking beyond sports cards
In general, and
in general. And
yeah,
and that's what we have right now is we are in ChatGPT to our degree where everybody has written, oh yeah, 6 series. Well, they must have cut that sheet and have somebody count 50 of the first 50 cards and then put them in packs individually. And like, come on, like I can't see it being 6 series. I can see it being 2 series. There's 2 wrappers, there's 2 series. It's not like
yeah.
we find a lot of boxes. So prove to me that, please, that it came in 6 series somehow. You know, nobody's opened a lot of packs since that time. So
Yeah. It also, we don't know what has been printed as well and has
no.
been, like we're still finding cards that were printed maybe 130 to 160 years ago.
That
And
amazes me every time I hear that.
yes, and sometimes it rewrites the history that we know, and it's being taught today.
And I
And
love to be wrong.
yeah, I'm often wrong. And The thing is, I can always admit when I'm wrong, but I want someone to tell me exactly why I'm wrong.
Hmm.
Show me the
Prove it.
evidence, show me the proof exactly, and like then I'll be like, okay, great. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but let me, you know, show me why.
Yeah, and I had to correct somebody on Facebook yesterday. I was some guy posted he picked up some 1952 Parkhurst wrappers. Now they were boxes. Now the 52s were made out of the overprint of the 51 sheets. So they made boxes out of them, slide, they weren't sealed by anything. It was just kind of slot sealed, you know. And they have all the players on the outside. So some guy goes, "Yeah, well, they ran out of the regular boxes and then they had these and they put them out there." I'm going, the funny part is there is another wrapper, but it's very almost simplistic looking. If you take their first year and look at the second year, that it looks like a mock-up of some sort. And one has only been found, but 20 others, 30, 40 others have been found of these 52 other boxes with the players on the outside from the 51 cards that they designed. And actually, my mentor, Ronald Villeneuve, he says, because he was in his parents owned a variety store, he said he would take the box, which was made of the uncut wrappers, and he gets that I get 3 full cards out of that box. He said, if you cut it properly, the display box. So the display
Wow.
box was made out of confirmed by him directly. He was there, and to tell me those details, and also that the other ones. So you have to correct people along the way. And that's also happened that O-Pee-Chee cut their cards with wires. That's why they're so rough cut. And that, well, it got printed in Beckett sometime in the, is it 90s? Yeah, in the 90s.
I
So
heard that,
fact, yeah, and I've
or
corrected people all the time.
but they're like writing. So what I've heard is like Parkhurst put all their cards in a
That's true though.
okay. So
That's
because
true.
that to me doesn't. It sounds kind of fanciful.
Well, the reason why is that they had a slitter, so they had like a stack of sheets. So they're doing cuts, and you got 50 Richards, 50 Sawchucks, 50. So they had to mix them up. So bought a cement mixer for $100, and this is confirmed by an interview that was recorded of him saying that for about $100, he says, we bought a cement mixer to mix them up. But we had a girl there to check that nothing got damaged too bad. The corner, if there was bad cards, she would pull them out. But they were hand packaged anyways back in that
Okay.
time period. So that
Yeah.
is a true story. But the other one is not.
So it's yeah.
Wire.
When myth turns into reality is when you have some
That's
issues.
why I try to stomp it out right away. And I'm not trying to put the person down, but everybody who keeps doing that and somebody reads it and doesn't come back to my post will still take
Right.
that information and go on, right? And if they respect that person who's sort of above them in a collecting sense, the guy's been in it for 40 years, he should know,
Right.
But, even me, I'm wrong, and I've been in it a long time too.
Yeah,
So,
and what I love about this hobby is that everybody comes to the hobby in a different way,
Mm.
but they also learn at a different pace as well, right?
True.
So I always I've been in the hobby now for probably since '94 for vintage, right? So you're looking at 30 years almost, and then before that, but I'm still learning, and it's a hobby. I think that you're continually learning new things and throughout, and there's no way that you can actually know everything. And
Mm-mm.
I've always tell people that if I come across a card that I'm not entirely sure about, I will get a second opinion, or I will walk away, and that saves me a lot of money. First
Sure.
off, if there's something I really don't know about, I'm definitely going to contact somebody who may know more than I do about it.
Mhm.
So, I'm. Some people consider me as like a hobby historian, and I know an awful lot. And maybe I am, but at the same time, there's a lot of people who know a lot more than I do, and I'm going to refer to them too.
Sure.
So
I refer to the guys who are specialists in the beehive area. I don't, I know enough about it to get me by, no problem. But you want to get into the finite details, those are the guys I go to. And and it goes for, there's a few issues like that. And the cards too, they say, well, you don't collect cards. And they call me, sometimes I'm saying, well, you're a hockey historian. I said, no, I'm really a hobby historian. And they say, well, you don't like cards. And I said, it's not like I don't like cards, I just don't collect cards. But I know everything about the company, I know everything about the set. Just because you've been collecting the 51 set, you know that card number 52 is Bill Burrell. That one is Bill Burrell, by the way. Anyways, I can't recall Rain Man, that stuff. But I'll tell you about George Kennedy that you don't know.
Yeah.
So I know the different things that you don't know. So I'm more of a historian in the sense that the companies and the weird parts of the set, but not who the rookies are in the set. For the most part, I get most of them. But I mean, some guy goes, oh, card number 100, 1970, right? And I go, no, I
I
don't.
wouldn't even know that either.
It's like,
There's a really fascinating thing I think that I've seen, and I hate to say this too, because I was watching a video on somebody else's podcast, and the name Paul Warfield came up, a football Hall of Famer,
hmm,
and he played in the 1960s, and uh, somebody had said, who cares about Paul Warfield? And I was kind of taken aback by that comment, just because somebody 20 years from now could say, who cares about, Tom Brady or another player who's playing today.
hmm,
And one thing I really enjoy about what I do on my channel is I like to talk about the players and the companies and all this, and
hmm.
why people collect what they collect. And unfortunately, today it seems like it's all about money, and that's been going on now probably for 40 years. You know,
Yeah, I think we discussed this last time. It is about money. I understand that, and it seems like the main focus is that. But that was sort of the nature of the beast to happen, especially when we had the big boom. It just turned it fully. Now, most of those people have weeded themselves out and got out of it because the drock in the marketplace. So we're back down to the hobbyists at a certain point, and I think we're in a good position at this time going forward. I would really like to see somebody do the history of the baseball, or maybe just the Topps history, or maybe just Bowman, or just something there, and slowly build. Because that's what I did. I started with wax packs, and we got the boxes down, we got the wrapper. There's no book that you can go to. Mark Murphy's book, I think I have here. When I was looking and comparing different things, but even he didn't have a lot of stuff there, and I slowly built it to that degree. I'd like to see that in football and basketball. Somebody could do it. But nobody says, screw it, I'm going to do it. I said, screw it, I did hockey. But I've also went on to doing, baseball and all the other things that are sort of related. And, I hear I'm talking about 54 baseball. I know about the top set, but I know about the Peachy set too. And I kind of got in a little argument with somebody about that. And they said, well, they're Topps card inside. I said, yeah, but it's O-Pee-Chee. We call it, O-Pee-Chee. The box is very unique because it has Ted Williams on it. So it's an O-Pee-Chee box. It's got 36 counts. It says made in Canada by O-Pee-Chee. So, and he wouldn't let it go. He said, yeah, but it's still Topps. I said, Topps owns a license. But I said, if you have a pack, it's an O-Pee-Chee pack. So it's got 4 cards in it. Do you really know the difference between a 4 card and a 6 card? Which one do you want to pay more for? Yeah. Oh, it's got Topps cards. It's just another pack. Okay, well, you get to get 2 less cards in your O-Pee-Chee pack, and I hope you pay twice as much.
yeah. So Brandon, thank you very much. Don't forget Bobby there too, because he's a awesome historian as well. Um, the funny thing is, I I initially started collecting vintage sports cards because I wanted to learn more about the players and the companies that issued the cards. And there wasn't really, I mean, so now like I'm like probably in the 4th grade or so, and I'm walking into a card shop and I'm seeing all these vintage tobacco cards, baseball, T205, T206, and I'm looking at these things, and they're so foreign to anything that I've ever seen before, and I'm I'm just like, oh my God. It's like I just stepped, back in time to a place that I don't know anything about. And so I was immediately fascinated. I want to learn as much as I could. But the problem is, Bobby, nobody was there to tell me who these players were or what the company was. And I
Yeah.
couldn't ask the dealer because he didn't know. And there's not a whole lot of information out there. So I began at that point kind of studying on my own and trying to figure out this stuff. And um, I think for some collectors or even dealers that they want to get into vintage or cards and they just don't know where to start. You know,
I think it's really based on the impetus with how you start, and that was a good story of how you started. Why I started, because I always collected, from 1969 whatever up. There was times that I didn't collect, but I always was interested. And then there was comic books and all the other things that came along the way. But the impetus got me into it was really through wax wrappers and display boxes. Is I was going, what year is that? You can't say it's this, and this guy says this. Which one is it? We don't know. And then I just said, okay. And then finally you do enough research, and then you start realizing, okay, that's Topps, that's Opeachy. Okay, and then it's step by step, and then you just all of a sudden it's trickle, flow, flood. You're fully into it, and then you just don't stop, and you keep going. And yeah, I went crazy.
it's rabbit holes. And the thing is, like, so like when I was in the fifth grade, fourth grade, there was no internet. So
Yeah, well, I wanted to add to addendum to my story, which is going to relate to just what you're saying here, is that so I'm like 59, so there's no sports card stores in the 80s when I'm kind of growing, like I'm graduated at grade 12 in 1981, 82. So there's nothing really for me. So I don't have that like you do. You go into a sports card store because it's 94. Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's lots. But back then there isn't. So you
yeah.
missed that part. But why I got into vintage was because of that, but not through seeing them in sports card stores. Because really, you started working, you were driving cars, you don't care about cards at that time.
Right. Yeah. And so I'll tell you a really funny story was that I picked this card up earlier this year, and
Is that Topps or Opeachy?
it's Topps.
Yeah, I can see
But
the back. Dark back.
yeah. So I'll show you. The back is.
See, Topps is known for their dark backs compared to Opeachy. Yet 54, it's like, oh, okay.
So the funny thing is, like, I grew up always wanting this card, but it was just way too expensive, and nobody that I knew wanted to give one up. And so, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Anyway, when I walked into the card show and I'm looking around and I'm seeing, I saw this and I saw a 1981 Joe Montana rookie as well, and so I picked that up too. But I noticed something that really bothered me. It was all modern stuff, and all these kids were around, and they seemed to know all these players and the cards, and I felt like a space alien. I felt like completely like odd, strange, and it was something like I felt so uncomfortable because I didn't know any of the players. I don't watch sports. I haven't watched sports in in decades, honestly. So for me, I'm more comfortable with the vintage stuff, the vintage guys. I know more about, like Glenn Hall here. But in this instance, I felt so uncomfortable that the first time I walked out of the show because it was all modern stuff, and I felt very overwhelmed with the entire experience.
So was it money then?
Huh?
Was it money at that point? If you just rewind it, because that's what we're saying today, right? So 94, is it really about the money or the players at that point? The feeling, the overall, the aura of the hobby. In your opinion?
Money.
It was, yeah. Same thing. Except you add a few more zeros onto the money end now.
For me, in college, it was about the money because I was using sports cards to pay for college. And yeah, so after that, after I graduated, I never sold another card. And it's very rare. I think I've sold one card, and since I've been out of college, maybe one or two, but it's
Mm-hmm.
for the most part my collection is complete since. And there's other cards that I'd never sold. So, um, for me, it was about uh, money. And then afterwards, I was like, I don't really care about the money, and I just want to rebuild my collection. Um, and it's funny because I never had a problem obtaining cards up until the pandemic.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
there there were cards that I could buy well prior. So like I'm purchasing as a teenager now. I'm like 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. And I'm purchasing 1941 double play Ted Williams for like maybe 120, 140.
Mm-hmm.
And that may seem like a lot back then, but for me when I'm buying and selling cards, I'm also saving some money for other cards too. So it was easier for me. And then again, I had access to auction houses. One of the auction houses I used to buy regularly at was Hall's Nostalgia here in Massachusetts, and they were known from coast to coast.
Mm-hmm.
And you could get cards really cheap. And the thing is, now that I'm seeing, which really kind of disturbed me, was that you have a lot of young collectors or even old collectors that have come back into the hobby, and they're just buying cards that I think they're overpaying for. And I started to notice. So I bought a 1933 Gaudi Dizzy Dean, and I think I paid 184 for it. Um, way back, like 25 years ago. And at the time, I'm like, oh my god, it was at auction. And I was like, oh my god, I just overpaid for this. I was so PO'd that I was thinking I'm never ever going to be able to sell this card. I need to because I just overpaid so much for it. And then maybe like a year or two ago, uh, I see like how much the card is going for and like a lower grade than mine, and
Mm-hmm.
I think someone paid like $800 for like a two or a three, and I'm starting to see a lot of lower grade cards go for an exceptional amount of money that they really shouldn't. And I'm not entirely sure what it is. So, you know, um, it's it's maybe new collectors coming in and they don't realize that these cards that they're buying are not rare. Gaudi printed so many cards, and one reason we know that is because they made over $1 million in 1933. But nobody's really kind of like standing aside and saying like, okay, like what is rare, what is not.
Mm-hmm.
They're just buying cards and they're using, I think, pandemic money as well. They were using for it. So it wasn't even like a second job or maybe even like extra money. They were just throwing money at cards that they were overpaying for, and they didn't care how much they paid because it wasn't technically their money. If that,
Yeah, by default, they made a lot of money if they were holding. If you're holding cards, you could make a lot of money. And I've seen a lot of guys who are just regular dealers turn into guys who had 50, 70, $80,000 cards on their table. They have this little dinky table. Meanwhile, they got all these cards, and everybody's buying at a certain point. So everybody used newfound money, or maybe they sold their Gretzky and got that money, and then they reinvested. It was it was a constant reinvestment that was happening there. It was that I'm going to trade up to here, to here, to here. I'm going to get rid of these guys, and then I'm after these ones, and then they get to that level, and they want to go to the next level, and they keep on building up to a Ruth or whatever they want to get to. Want to get that 33 Ruth. I got to get at least a 5. So I want to sell all these and get that, and then I'm at my pinnacle. And that's my investment there. I put that away. It's over. but it's never over because the stimulation's constantly there.
I was really surprised too when I was at the 22 National, and I almost blew a circuit just seeing all the cards. And so one table I stopped and there was just stacks of hundreds, and I was like, in what other business would this ever occur? Where you would have stacks of hundreds for like
It's like a
one?
retail store, like a stack of Crest on the, or Colgate on the shelf.
Yeah. And so I was just watching this deal go down, and I was like really surprised at it. But you know what? It's like you said, it's constant. There were a lot of those kind of deals
Hmm.
uh, go down. But
But what person didn't buy their Gretzky rookie or Ernie Banks or whoever back prior to the pandemic? They've been in the hobby since the 90s, whatever. So for out of the 25 years, they could have got that card,
yeah,
and now they would buy it for this much more. So it wasn't the vintage guys who were paying the big money. It was a lot of the new people who came in who drove it up, and a lot of people with more money. But actually, a lot of people who were holding, they ended up with more money. I know a lot of guys who made a lot of money and they sold their collection, and
yeah,
some sold and kind of rebought and resold again. So there was a lot of that going on. Now I
yeah.
think it's weeded out, and we're at that point back to, an average point of. There's still people flipping and stuff like that, but I mean, it's for the most part, most of the collectors have stayed. Most of the investors have left.
Yeah, we've seen that in the past too. That's not really anything new, especially when you're looking at the hobby from like say 1991 through 1994. When the hobby took a nosedive by 40%. What's funny though is that so I just had this card graded,
Mm.
and I did a video on my first grading submission, and I tell you the truth, like I never really cared too much about graded cards. It was always about the card. And so um my buddy kind of said like, listen, there's cards that you need to get graded for like insurance and whatever else.
Yeah.
So this card I paid something like, thank you. So I I got this at auction. I want to say I paid under $100 for it. And um not only can I not afford this particular card, but I can't afford any other Jackie Robinson card out there today because I had three of them. I had a 49 Bowman
Hmm.
and a 1956 Topps and that card. And I figured, you know, um, I'll be able to afford these cards again, if I need to. Like that's not happening. And so what you said was I think something that just um, it rings true that there's a lot of investors that have come into the hobby, and they're the ones that are jacking up the prices for everybody else and kind of like pushing everybody out of the hobby, especially guys and even girls that want to get into vintage now that they can't. Baseball has really kind of priced itself out um, for a lot of these newer
Yeah.
collectors. Even guys like me, I can't touch some of the cards that I had as a kid, or
Yeah, there's nostalgia in that. With the new stuff, there's no nostalgia. It will be nostalgia one day, but the newer stuff that they're putting out it's just my era that I was brought up. These cards have survived the test of time. The new ones, they're just going to make some more next year and the year after and the year after. Fair enough. It's a business. Do what you want. It's your money. But out of the gate, I can't see some of these cards being worth $40,000-$50,000 with a part piece, small little dimple of a patch, and his autograph that you can get for $40 ends up 40,000 on a card. It's just because they limit it. It's sort of it's a different world of collecting in the newer stuff. I understand that, and I understand why people like it. It's
yeah.
stimulating. What are they coming out with next? We did that as kids, but it was like 25 cents a pack.
Exactly. It was a lot different because you're not dealing with hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And it's I really hate to say this because I don't want to trash the modern hobby, but
Mm-hmm.
we've
I kind of just did a little bit, but
Yeah.
an insult to injury there.
Yeah. So I'm trying to go easy on the modern guys here, because um, they like their hobby, but
Sure.
at the same time, we've seen what happens in the modern hobby because we've been through it in the past, and the nosedive it took. In fact, a lot of I'd actually kind of say that the hockey cards kind of started uh, nosediving before baseball did back in like 1994 because hockey had its lockdown in what
Yeah.
1992, and then again
Yeah.
in 1994, and then that transpired into baseball, and then to vintage. So
A lot
I
of
was looking,
factors in there for sure. Yeah.
yeah, and it's so I was looking at a Beckett from 1994 because I wanted to see what kind of damage there was, and I liked Beckett, but here's the thing that I'm looking at it differently now that I'm an adult instead of a teenager. And the
Hmm.
one thing I'm looking through these Beckett's from like the 80s and the 90s is that they're putting everything in rosy glossary, if you will, rosy gloss, and like everything is thumbs up, keep collecting, and you know if you're looking
Is that
in
Le'Veon Rose, rose-colored glasses?
yeah, exactly. And so when you're reading like articles and people who are not particularly in the hobby, they're saying a completely different tune than
Mm.
what Beckett is saying. And at the same time, you're looking at all the prices from like 1994 of even vintage and especially modern. Everything is going down in price.
But nothing was so out of price back in, let's say, 94. If you went through the guide, nothing was totally out of your reach to
Right.
a certain degree. You'd have to save up for some, but some today we're just saying, it's $80,000.
Yeah.
It's a Tesla. No, it's
It,
it's
yeah.
it's
It's
just gone past that point of, it's not fun at that point because that's, well, it's a different game for different people with the different, obviously we all are
yeah.
different levels of income or what we have in to spend on our hobby, and that just pushes the envelope to where we're in the hundreds of thousands. Those are the big boys games; they can play that. But like the shows that we're doing here, we're not talking about look at this $80,000 card. Look at this new patch thing that came out. I can probably get 150K for. So okay.
Yeah, you almost the one thing that really kind of scared me as a teenager and especially like when I was going to college was um, buying and selling because at some point I stood back and I kind of lost the perspective of a dollar because I was just buying and selling so much that um, all the money just came in, and then it was just at some point you're like, what am I doing? Like there's so much money involved in this, and I got kind of like scared, really, and thankfully, like
Hmm.
I managed to be really kind of like pull myself back into reality, and I mean,
Hmm.
think about it. These are cards. These are sports cards, and some people kind of treat it like it's the Wall Street, right? And it's not. They're investments, but they're not treated like investments on Wall Street. So
Some are more liquid than others, but Brendan brings up a good point. Have we watched the video about the dents being taken out of the cards? Well, that kind of stuff's been going on for 30, 40 years.
yeah,
It's just new in the public eye. There's guys who are good at doing that. As
yeah,
long as you don't add anything or take anything away from a card, I'm fine with it. What do you do behind closed doors? I don't really know. I don't really figure it out. As long as the card looks fine and I can't tell, then so be it. Because, that's what they were saying about, every 51 Parker's card's been trimmed at one point. Well, because they were cut on a guillotine slitter, the cuts are off. Some are a little big, some are a little small, you know, and people will take advantage of those situations.
yeah,
And if you can get a dent out of a card, let's say, okay, you walked in the rain and you had your cards and it got wet, and that water actually takes some, moisture, puts back into the card. It might take that dent out. Now, are you a fixer of cards, or it was happenstance? So many things. So if you're worried about that, you really shouldn't be. It's and that's what you have grading companies for, and that's why your bank's is good. Is it trimmed? Does it have? Has it been colored in? Like I said, adding stuff and taking stuff away from cards, or rebuilding. See, comic books, they get away with that. They can rebuild the things,
Yeah.
and they can press them. They can do all these other things to them. It's a different collectible, but almost the same type of hobby, but it's allowed because it's more modern and more different thinking. And we are like the old guard, and we're trying to slowly push our old ways forward, and we're kind of stopped at the door with the new shiny stuff, and that's good for them because that's their part of the hobby. We're all part of the hobby. We're just different stages, different levels, and that's fine too. Some of the new cards look nice. Some are ridiculous too, that go for ridiculous money. But we could say that about those guys eating hot dog cards in the 90s, or the weird cards that they did of it was the 90s or 80s. So
Yeah, every decade has its specifics, and you know, for example, that this is from the 1950s just by the design alone, and you know that this card is from the 70s. At least you should.
that one's kind of hard to tell.
Okay, so here's a better example. All right. So, yeah. Okay. So this is that this is from the 1970s, and you may know that this is from the 1980s. Again, this is a set that I could never get as a kid, just because of the Mario Lemieux. But as you kind of creep forward over the last maybe 20 years or so, I can't tell what card is what decade. They all kind of blend in together.
Yeah. Ours are a little different in hockey. The 10s are distinctively different from the 20s, as are the 30s. And then the 50s and 60s kind of blend together. 70s kind of stand out. 80s, you see that wind of change from the 70s to the 80s. It almost goes like music. And then the 90s, and then after 2000, then it gets into everything. Everything is everything. It's like
there's no distinction.
No, because one company did 40 sets, the other company did this. Now it's going to be exclusive. So they're going to have different brands. I understand going forward, but what are they going to do going forward? It's just like, well, this is what you get. Did we screw up this year? Oh, we got another set. We'll put it out. And it's, and getting rid of the people and the margins that they make on like the dealers in the stores on the markup, it's ridiculous. It's horrible. I can't believe it. You think if you got rid of that middleman, you'd give a little bit back to the deal, but they don't care. Because if you want to stay in business, you have to buy our product. It's like, oh, wow.
Well, that's the problem. That's a problem I have with Fanatics.
Yes, that's what I said that, but without saying it.
Well, I'm saying
you want them, okay?
So Fanatics wants they want dealers' personal data on the cards, how many cards that they're selling, and then they want their own space as well, and for like tops too. So I personally, and they say that if they don't like the way the shop is or like how they're presented,
I understand, because they have the business that they have going forward, they want to make sure they're being well represented, and they want to kind of gear the hobby to being that much better. I get it. So I can understand there being criteria, but it seems like the criteria is a lot for maybe what they're going to make from it. Like a dealer, I mean, a local dealership, local, are they really going to make that much money? Because I heard that they had to put so much money in the stock, and they're making $5 a box. Like, wow, $5 a box. I wouldn't even sell it. But then you have to have your minimum quotas or whatever they're going to ask you to do. And you're going to have to jump through hoops of what they say, because they can change the rule of the game anytime because they are the supplier.
So
and you only have one. You can't go to somewhere else.
and then you can't sell at a show either, right? Is that the other
Yeah,
thing?
yeah. You can't sell at a show. It has to be a certain not. You can't sell it below uh, retail price. So there's all these things that it brought the freelance of being a local car dealer. I don't know.
Well, I mean, if you're first off, if you're purchasing the product, I would consider it your product, and you can do whatever you want with it,
Yeah,
right? Um,
set
and
it on
then
fire.
like so, in
Hmm.
some instances, like it would be like a car, right? So like when it's driven off the lot, it devalues, right? So
Hmm.
I mean, not all the cases with baseball or basketball or hockey or whatever, but for the most part,
Yeah,
most cards are like 10 cents. The commons, who, unless you're completing a set, where do the commons go? It's like baby pigeons, right? You see, you know that there's baby pigeons because there's grown up pigeons, but you never see them, right? So it's,
that's true. It's where that sock go. That one sock you put two in, and it's gone somewhere. It's just
yeah,
mysteries of the universe, right? And that's true.
exactly. So like, I've always kind of figured that because I have actually two common cards that are missing from my 1984 John Russ set. That
Hmm.
I'm still looking for, and so I'm like, okay, I now I kind of I see them online, and I have to pay more for the shipping than the cards are actually worth.
Just to be a completist in your own mind at that point to get that common card. Now you got to pay shipping. Now you got to. It's like, yeah,
Yeah,
I'll get it one day.
and
Well, that's the best part about going to shows, and
yeah,
that's the way the National is. You know, the National was really successful this year to a lot of people, except for the air conditioning. And I always
I
said,
heard.
call it like it is. The air conditioning was shit, and everybody, people got taken away in ambulances. So like, you can put them down, but you can also bring them back up. You don't have to make everything bad. But
Yeah,
let people know is like, hey, listen, we're not going to settle for that crap again. You can't have that hot weather and have because people are just going in front of fans or cool rooms, and it was just not very good for the people, and it makes for the experience lessened a lot.
yeah. There was I heard there was just a massive show because they added more room to it.
Yeah.
I don't know how I would have fared at this national because I barely got out of the 22 national, and one of the things that really bothered me the most was my feet, and the concrete. So I actually, if I'm going to the national next year, I actually bought a small portable seat with me
Yeah,
because
that's a good thing.
there wasn't enough seating
Of
uh,
course.
available, and um,
My friend Victor, he brought a little portable seat. It was in his backpack, folded up like this. So it
yeah,
got to be smart, and you got to have a place to sit. It's if you get to know enough people there, you get to sit behind the booth with them, which has always been a good part for. Well, the Toronto Expo's like that for me. Hey, Bobby, come on, sit down. Okay, yeah. Hey, you want a donut? You want a jerky stick or something? It's like I never get around. But there was times I used to just bully around up and down the aisles, just having fun. It's not as big as the natural. It's probably about not even. It's probably not even a third, but it's still big to me.
would you go to the national next year?
Yes, I'm actually because it's in Ohio. I can drive there in like 5.5, 6 hours.
That's not bad. I'll probably see you there then.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I
Yeah.
plan on going. It's on my calendar. So Chicago wasn't doable this year. I got too many things that I'm working on. But the app will be out, and maybe I can talk to a few more people there. It's more of a social visit because my friends go down there and they tell me all the hockey stuff, and I go, no, no, that's 3 times as much as we sell them for here. Come on, you know they don't want to sell hockey down there. It's just they're overpriced. They don't understand it. Buy
And
the app. Then I'll
yeah,
explain. Here's an app, and here's what it says right here. And it
yeah.
only works to their advantage. Oh, that guy doesn't know anything. He does that. Yeah, I did that. Yeah.
I love I love fucking hockey, but I don't see enough dealers who are into hockey here.
It doesn't sell there. It's not a big hype thing, and I get it, 100%. But that's kind of good. I like hockey. That's it's more for the Expo, the Toronto Expo. But Toronto Expo has a lot more stuff now too, because you have dealers expanding, a lot of new dealers, a lot of new corporate entities. So it's really changed a lot. Where it used to be all vintage dealers for the most part, and whatever was currently going on at those times. Now we're into a different world for sure.
Yeah. You know, one thing I find very interesting is because now I'm all over the place when it comes to like sports. So at the 22 National, for the first time ever, I saw soccer cards or football cards,
Okay. Yep.
and I saw cricket cards as well. And I've never seen these at a show like ever. Um, and it's really funny too because these are the two biggest sports in
Yeah.
the world.
It's funny because the expo we would have those small quantities. There's non-sports dealers, and then they'd end up with these weird, players cards, golf cards from 1925, and there was guys who had those little things. They would sit there forever for a few shows because they wouldn't get the people coming to ask for them, but they were always there, and I was always interested in looking at what was different.
Yeah.
Doesn't always have to be about hockey. So
No, and the thing is, I have a card right up here of Don Bradman. And it's the 19.
yeah,
Yeah, but
cricket. Mr. Bradman, the cricket guy with the hat.
yeah. So I picked this up a while ago, and he's got a lot of cards out there, but a lot of his cards are not expensive. But when I was at the National, I saw a lot of Don Bradman's cards, and they were just really like out of this world expensive, and they
Really?
really,
Were they
yeah,
graded?
they were graded.
That's the other thing that adds the value, right? Obviously, it's like,
Yeah,
even though there's lots of them, if you get a 10, and there's a lot of 10s of those guys, because honestly, those cards, it just seem like, and they don't even seem as old as they're always in better condition for some reason.
yeah. And I've noticed that, especially because I collect a lot of the 1960s soccer.
Scanlons?
Well, I've seen the Scanlons, and I haven't gotten to them yet.
Oh, okay.
That's another challenge.
Okay.
The others, I can't even think now. The
The other soccer ones?
no, I can't even think now. But they were actually issued in candy cigarettes, and in packages back in the 1960s, and Gold Flake is one of them. So anyway, those cards, I see them in like really nice condition, but they're really expensive if they're graded compared to like raw. And then the other thing is because they're coming from England, the shipping is outrageous. And I've seen like
Yeah.
cards that like they want like $2.50, and they could be a Hall of Famer, but the shipping is like $10 to $20, and I'm like, like why? Like what? Like who's making out on that deal?
There's got to be money in everything. So, well, we're going to have to wind this down now.
Right.
We had a great conversation. I think it was wonderful. And to let everybody know that in November at the Toronto Sports Card Expo, I will be releasing the app. It'll have CFL and hockey. And I'm going to try to add the Parkers, all the non-sports, over the next year or so. And I'm just going to try to beef it up. Unless somebody buys us out for millions of dollars. We'll be fine with that too. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It won't be finished, so I'm going to kind of release it on a sort of almost like a beta. But it's better to have it now. I've been using it for a year, and I get caught looking at it. It's like, okay, and I think it'll benefit anybody because the amount of information I know is so much that there's lots in there. There's so much in there, but we just need to add pictures and some new other issues, that keep coming up that need to be added. So that it will be fully It's fully functional right now, but it will release it then, and I think people will benefit from it greatly. I do believe that the other sports need to do something. Somebody has to do something.
Yeah, there's only so much that I can do and you can do.
Yeah, well, exactly. No, somebody else has to take on that, group source. Make a group and have people add to it, and somebody organize it. They do that with the non-sports group. Uh, uh, there's there's a few guys out there in the big non-sports, and I used to donate all the pictures of the non-Canadian non-sports to them, and they make little files, and you could go to each one of them and click and see all the full sets and stuff. So it was really well
Wow.
done. Yeah, so they've done that, but it's still a work in progress, even though it's been 10, 15 years they've been working on it. It's slowly getting the right information. And they really come together, the non-sports guys. They don't know everything, but they're more vested in it because they collect so many different things. They collect 250 different things at one time. Whereas you and I, we have only so many sets, right? And we're kind of chasing this.
Yeah.
So that's why there's no focus. But there's always that one guy who knows, and he knows a lot. Ask this guy, or this guy knows a lot. Or we documented that set. So it is good. So I'd like to see basketball, football, and baseball slowly get their stuff together. I got boxes and cases and wrappers and other weird stuff all documented, ready to give somebody. Just a matter of finding the person to say, hey, send it this way.
Nice. So Barrett was the company that I was thinking of.
Oh, Barrett. Okay, yeah.
Barrett.
Yeah.
And I'm slowly winding my way through. And what's fun about this is that I don't know all of the players, and I like to research the players and the companies as well. So there's always something like that I like to. It continues to fascinate me and keeps me in the hobby. So, all right, guys, I'm going to let this slide for right now. But, Bobby, thank you so much for stopping by. And,
no problem. Anytime we can do this again. We can seem to talk our way through 2 hours pretty easily. So a little bit of a fumble at the beginning, but we picked it up for a touchdown at the end. So.
Yeah. So, okay, guys, thank you so much. I'll talk to you guys later.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.